So I get a lot of questions about how JKAM Investments does its due diligence, and I'm going to talk about a few key things today. Due diligence is both an art and a science. The first and most important thing is, how do we find our operating partners? And operating partners are sometimes referred to as sponsors or operators or general partners. So the first thing we do is we closely look at the team and their track record. We also like to hone in on how they've responded to any past challenges. Fact is, anyone who started in 2010 or 2011 could easily have a 10-year track record of great returns, but without really facing any substantial challenges. Over the last few years, we've seen many operators who had great track records lose focus and get into a lot of trouble as interest rates rose. Sponsors' liquidity is also very important. When deals have challenges, it's important to have a sponsor that has skin in the game, but also has enough of their own liquidity to be the first ones to add additional capital into a deal, potentially avoiding a capital call to passive investors. We have one specific deal where one of our operating partners has over $3 million additional of their own money to bridge the gap on the deal to make sure they didn't have to make a capital call to their passive investors, including us. It's also important who the other limited partners are in the deal. I think deals are riskier, and we've seen more deals fail where there was a lot of small investors, because when capital calls are needed, it's much more difficult to get 20 to 30 small investors to all contribute versus at least having one or two larger check writers in the deal. We have seen a number of deals that the capital calls have succeeded, and we've received 2 to 3 years extensions and loan modifications because there's a few big check writers who contributed a significant amount of capital to ensure that the deal is successful. Fortunately, over many years of investing, we found a number of partners and operators that meet all of these criteria. The next important part of due diligence is actually on the property itself. We focus on a number of different real estate asset classes, and the diligence is actually varies slightly depending on the asset class. But there's a number of themes that are universal. The first thing we look for is a value add component, meaning is there something that forces appreciation rather than just buying and hoping that the value goes up. For multifamily apartments, this is typically renovation of units, modernizing of apartment units, new kitchen cabinets, new countertops, new flooring, potentially new bathroom fixtures, and often spending $5,000 to $10,000 on an apartment unit can raise the rents by $200 to $400 per month for an updated unit. So the first thing we want to look at is, do we agree with these rent premium projections? Sometimes this is easy to figure out if the building already has newer units achieving these rents. Other times we need to look closely at the comparable properties in the neighborhood to ensure they're truly comparable. This is an extremely key part of due diligence in any type of real estate. This is an extremely important component of due diligence for any type of real estate, making sure that the comps are appropriate comps. All too often, appraisals could use the wrong comp. Perhaps the property is on the other side of a highway or the proverbial other side of the tracks. And it could be in a different submarket, different school system, have completely different set of rent potentials. For other asset classes, self-storage as an example, sometimes new construction of additional units is involved. Sometimes it's adding climate control to existing units. Sometimes it's adding additional services like moving truck rentals for additional revenue streams at the property, or potentially using seller financing to turn park-owned homes into, for mobile home parks, it could be adding new lots or spaces, adding park-owned homes as rentals, or selling park-owned homes via seller financing to new occupants. For marinas, which is one of our exciting asset classes, adding additional boat slips or adding covers to existing boat slips. We have one marina where there's a waiting list for covered docks, and there's vacancies on uncovered docks. So it's going to be a simple project to drastically increase the revenue. Value add isn't always renovation. There's a saying that you make your money on the buy. Value add can be having a competitive advantage that allows for higher returns at your acquisition. For example, we have a partnership where we can actually invest with the city of Houston, and that allows for an 80% property tax reduction, which substantially improves the financials for this acquisition. Next, we look at what is the financing structure. Fixed rate debt is much less risky. If a project has variable rate debt, we want to know what is the time frame and what is the contingency plan if rates skyrocket like they did in 2022. In today's market, variable rate debt is likely less risky as rates are extremely likely to drop over the next 6 to 12 months. However, it still needs to be accounted for as part of the business plan and significant